Julian Mercer recognized the chilling geometry of an ambush, but this wasn't a dusty alley in a foreign hotspot. This was a manicured street in Oak Haven, South Carolina, and the men aiming to trap his family were local police. They were about to make a catastrophic error in judgment. It started with a single patrol car, its slow crawl down the street, a predator's stalk. The driver's eyes were locked on their GMC Yukon. A second cruiser slid in behind it, cutting off any retreat. And Officer Hayes got out, his hand already resting on the butt of his pistol. "I'm just walking to the edge of the lawn," Julian said to his wife, Elena, his voice a low, calm vibration. "Keep your hands visible." He moved with a deliberate, easy gait, giving the approaching officer a disarming nod. The gesture was met with a glare of pure ice. As Julian walked back toward the porch, his 13-year-old son, Leo, spoke, his voice trembling slightly. "Dad, he's still staring at us." Julian's gaze swept the scene. One officer out, one still in his vehicle, a textbook containment maneuver for a family unloading groceries. Before Elena could find the rental agent's number, two more cruisers appeared, lights flashing silently, boxing their Yukon in against the curb. This wasn't a routine call. This was a raid. The lead officer, an older man with a sour face and Sergeant Miller's nameplate, broke the silence. He didn't ask. He barked, "You! On the porch! Get down here! Now! Let me see those hands!" Leo flinched as if struck. 9-year-old Maya cried out and buried her face in her mother's side. Julian moved instantly, placing his body between the officers and his family. He raised his hands slowly, palms open and empty. "Officer, there's no misunderstanding here. My name is Julian Mercer. We're the weekly tenants." A cruel, knowing smirk twisted Sergeant Miller's lips. "Bingo," his eyes seemed to scream. "Caught him flat-footed." "I'll bet you are," he grunted. "Now turn around. Put your hands behind your back." "I'm an agent with the federal government," Julian stated, his voice now dangerously cold. "My identification is in the Yukon's glove box. I strongly advise you to check it before this goes any further." He never finished the sentence. Miller gave a sharp, almost eager nod. The younger officer, Hayes, surged forward, grabbing Julian and slamming him face first against the porch railing. A knee dug viciously into his spine, stealing the air from his lungs. The last thing Julian heard before the sharp bite of steel cuffs on his wrists was his son's horrified gasp. "Julian!" Elena screamed, brandishing her phone. "I have the rental confirmation right here on the screen. Look at it!" She held the glowing screen out like a peace offering. Miller stormed onto the porch, snatched the phone from her hand, and scoffed. Without a single glance at the screen, he tossed it contemptuously onto a wicker chair. "You can show that to a judge," he sneered, seizing her arm. "Right now, you're getting in my way." "Getting in your way? You're assaulting my husband and terrorizing my children," she yelled. But he was already twisting her arm behind her back, cuffing her in front of her sobbing daughter. Forced to his knees on the perfectly green lawn, Julian looked up. He saw Elena, a respected surgeon, being brutalized. He saw his children paralyzed by fear. And he saw the smug, triumphant smirk plastered on Sergeant Miller's face. The rage was a flash furnace in his chest, but 2 decades of discipline forged a cage of ice around it. They saw a target. They had no idea they had just provoked a man the United States government trusted with its darkest secrets. The entire street had fallen quiet. Behind twitching curtains, neighbors watched the show, silent and unseen. "You are making a life-altering mistake," Elena cried, her voice muffled against the porch's wood. "The signed agreement is sitting on the kitchen counter." Miller wasn't listening. He was basking in the moment. On the lawn, Julian tried to reason with Officer Hayes, whose knee was still grinding into his back. "Listen to me. My name is Julian Mercer. I am with the Central Intelligence Agency." "You have the right to remain silent," Hayes recited, his voice a shaky monotone. Near the front door, Leo stood trembling, his arm wrapped around his little sister. "My mom did nothing wrong," he whispered. "Please, can I just go to her?" Miller shot the boy a look of pure venom. "Get back inside the house." "But that's my mother!" Leo's voice cracked with anguish. Julian's own voice rose, tight with fury. "The boy is 13. He is not a threat to you. Let him check on his mother." Miller ignored him, turning his attention back to Elena. "Let's see your ID." "It's in my purse inside," she spat, her fear replaced by white-hot anger. "Right next to all the other proof you're too damn arrogant to look for." "You watch your tone with me," Miller warned. "You put guns on my family and I have to be polite? You are the one breaking the law." "We got a 911 call," Miller finally said, his voice dripping with insinuation. "Neighbor reported a B&E, said a big SUV was being unloaded by suspicious individuals." A low, bitter laugh escaped Julian's lips from the ground. "Suspicious individuals?" "Let's call it what it is, Sergeant. The suspicious individuals were a black family in Oak Haven. That was the entire complaint, wasn't it?" Miller's jaw clenched. The silence was a confession. "If you are who you say you are," Miller grunted, yanking Julian roughly to his feet, "you can tell your stories to the booking sergeant." As they dragged him toward the cruiser, Julian locked eyes with his son. "Leo, listen to me. Protect your sister. Don't let them see you're afraid. You're in charge now." Though tears streamed down his face, the boy gave his father a firm, defiant nod. Shoved into the sweltering car, Julian saw Officer Hayes hesitate by the Yukon. "Sarge, the glove box is open. There's a leather wallet inside." "Leave it," Miller barked without looking. "If he's lying, finding out the hard way will be more satisfying." He doesn't want to know, Julian realized with chilling clarity. The truth would ruin his fun. In the stifling heat, cuffs biting his wrists, Julian's heart beat with a cold, metronomic rage. He had profiled men like Miller for 2 decades in unstable countries, petty tyrants drunk on power. He knew their playbook. He'd just never been the target on home soil. He leaned forward, speaking to Hayes. "My credentials are in that glove compartment. Go and look. This is your last chance to fix this." The young officer just stared ahead. "Tell the sergeant." Julian leaned back, watching his children become small, terrified figures on the porch. The shame he felt was not for himself, but for the ugly lesson being taught to his kids. The police station smelled of bleach and indifference. They shackled him to a bench in a hallway, where he could hear Elena's furious, ignored demands for a lawyer. After an eternity, Officer Hayes appeared, wearing a smirk of borrowed confidence. "So, still playing the big shot secret agent?" he sneered. Julian's gaze was like granite. "My identification is in the Yukon you seized," he said, his voice flat. "Go get it." The smirk on Hayes' face died. The quiet command unnerved him. "Why didn't you—" "I did," Julian cut him off. "You chose not to listen." The young cop looked like a boy in a Halloween costume and practically fled. Minutes later, Sergeant Miller appeared, his face a mask of contempt. "Still sticking to that fairy tale? That your badge is in the truck?" Julian gave a single, slow nod. Black leather case, agency seal on the front. Miller stared, then spun on his heel and disappeared. The wait was excruciating. Finally, panicked footsteps echoed down the hall. It was Hayes, his face ashen with a terror so pure it was almost visible. They'd found it. "Mr. Mercer, sir," he stammered. "We found your ID. This has been a terrible miscommunication." "Stop!" Julian's quiet voice cut through the stammering, making Hayes flinch. "Do not call your willful ignorance a miscommunication." Hayes swallowed hard. "Right, sir. I'll get these cuffs off." Moments later, Julian was rubbing his wrists at a metal table when Elena was brought in, her eyes blazing. "They dared call this a mix-up," she seethed. That's when Chief Bryant walked in. He was a man in an ill-fitting suit who radiated mediocrity. He sat down without an apology. "We've confirmed your identity, Mr. Mercer." "A little late, Chief," Julian replied. "You have to understand, when we get a call from that part of town—" "No," Julian's voice dropped to a lethal calm. "I don't. Your men had every chance to de-escalate. They chose violence. This failure belongs to you." Chief Bryant cleared his throat. "Given the circumstances, I'll have the charges dropped and waive the impound fee." "Charges?" Elena erupted. "You can't drop fraudulent charges. You can't waive a fee for a vehicle you illegally seized." "Don't try to sweep this under the rug, Chief," Julian said, leaning forward. "Here is what happens now. First, I want every report, the 911 audio, and all body cam footage sent to a secure email address I will provide. Second, when I leave, I am triggering a full DOJ civil rights investigation into this department. It will be painful. He let that sink in. Third, you will fire Miller and Hayes. That's non-negotiable. If they are still employed here by Friday, I will personally launch a federal complaint that will not only end their careers, but follow them for the rest of their lives. You will handle this, or believe me, my people will. Julian stood, his tall frame casting a long shadow over the stunned chief. And one final thing. While you were in here trying to figure out how to bury this, my 13-year-old son and 9-year-old daughter were left alone on that porch. They watched men with guns arrest their parents for the crime of unloading groceries. You don't get to just walk away from the lesson you taught them today. He and Elena turned and left the chief sitting speechless in the stale, silent room. The ride back to the rental house was heavy with a silence no one dared break. As they pulled into the driveway, two small figures launched themselves from the porch. "Dad!" Leo cried out, the raw relief in his voice a physical blow. Julian caught him in a fierce hug. "You did good, son," he whispered into his ear. "You took care of your sister. I'm so proud of you." Leo buried his face in his father's shoulder. "Dad," he mumbled, his voice thick with tears. "That man, the neighbor, he stood on his lawn and watched the whole time." Julian's gaze snapped to the house across the street, where a single porch light burned. A silhouette shifted behind a curtain. The caller, his jaw tightened into a line of steel. He walked back onto the porch and dialed a secure number he knew by heart. "This is Mercer," he said when the line connected. "Get me Deputy Director Sharma's office. I'm reporting an incident of aggravated misconduct by local law enforcement in Oak Haven, South Carolina. Flag all body cam and dispatch records before they can be erased." He paused, his voice turning to ice. "No, this isn't work-related. It's personal. They put hands on my family." Later that night, a tentative knock came at the door. It was Officer Hayes nervously holding out Julian's black leather credential case. "I saw my body cam footage," he stammered, unable to meet Julian's eyes. "There's no excuse. I am sorry, sir." Julian studied the young, disgraced officer for a long moment before taking the case. "That's a start," he said, then quietly closed the door. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't nearly enough. The call came just before dawn. It was Deputy Director Anya Sharma herself. "Julian, I've seen your preliminary report and the local chatter. This is bad." "I know," he said, pacing in the early morning quiet. "It may be out of our hands already," she said. "A neighbor's security camera caught the whole thing. The footage hit social media an hour ago. It's a wildfire." Julian's phone began to light up. By mid-morning, the video had over 1 million views. The Oak Haven Police Department had issued a weak statement about reviewing a procedural matter. "They're trying to contain it," Elena said with disgust, watching the news on her tablet. "They're a day late and $1 short," Julian replied, opening his laptop. Around noon, another knock. It was the neighbor, Mr. Henderson. I saw the whole thing," he began stiffly. "Just wanted to say I'm sorry about how it all went down." Elena stared at him, her arms crossed. "Was it you? Did you make the call?" He shuffled his feet, his gaze fixed on the ground. "I just wasn't sure what was happening." Julian stepped forward, his voice lethally calm. "Let me be clear. You saw a family with children unloading groceries from their car in broad daylight, and your first thought was to call in a felony home invasion? I didn't mean for them to do all that." "But they did," Julian cut him off, his stare unwavering. "And now you have to live with the consequences of that call." Henderson gave a defeated nod and shuffled back to his perfect house. 2 days later, the consequences arrived. In his office, Chief Bryant stared at Sergeant Miller, who stood before his desk, red-faced and defiant. A cold female voice emanated from the speakerphone on the desk. "Sergeant Miller, this is the Department of Justice. Your actions, as captured on multiple video sources, constitute a flagrant violation of civil rights. You are terminated, effective immediately. If you contest this, we will proceed with federal charges." Humiliated, Chief Bryant slid a cardboard box across his desk. "Your weapon and your badge, Miller. Now." Miller, speechless with rage, unclipped his holster and dropped his service pistol into the box. He ripped the badge from his uniform and threw it in after. He was escorted out of the station by 2 deputies, his career in ruins. After he was gone, the chief picked up a pen with a trembling hand. A single, elegantly typed letter sat in front of him. His own resignation. He signed it. The next morning, across the street from the Mercer's vacation rental, a for sale sign was hammered into Mr. Henderson's manicured lawn. Justice, once denied, had been delivered with cold surgical precision.